Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Fain, and I am a nonprofit business development coach out of Dallas, Texas. And my specialty is I teach nonprofits how to create cash flow without grants. But most importantly, I teach you how to leverage your money from within and to create funnels to your foundational core of your nonprofit to fund it upwards. So again, my name is Jasmine Fain, and some of the roles I have served and actually currently serve in the nonprofit industry are: I'm the former executive director of the Reach One Scholarship Program here in Dallas. I'm also a professional grant writer by profession, trained through college. Also, I am a nonprofit business development coach, again, where I teach nonprofits how to create cash flow without grants. I am also the CEO of Empower You, which is a marketing tech company that I founded and started in 2019. And we have developed a marketplace for underrepresented communities to connect with nonprofit programs in their area by simply typing in a zip code. Also, I am the former marketing director of the Women's Legal Center in Cape Town, South Africa. And then some of the achievements in the past year are that my company, Empower You, has become a graduate of the Tech Accelerator Program Founder Gym. So we're making moves in the nonprofit industry, trying to get people to these resources. So before I get into all the presentation and all the jazz of all that, creating cash flow, I want to give you a little background about my challenges with money. So let's go to this top picture. I was a young grant writer in this organization, but also I was also given the role of becoming the executive director over the Reach One Scholarship Program. And when I became the executive director, I was sat down and told, hey, Jasmine, in 2 weeks, you have to raise $1,000 and plan a charity basketball tournament. And I was just kind of startled. I didn't know where to start, where to begin, what was going on. But I can say I did it. I raised $1,000 and fully funded a basketball tournament, all through sponsorships and donations. The basketball tournament became sponsored by the NBA's Dallas Mavericks, and we gained donations to give away the $1,000. But as you can see, I couldn't turn to grants. Grants were not an option. So my community held me up, and we got donations and sponsorships. Then next, so like I said in this first picture, I was a young grant writer, but also during the time of being executive director, I was on a task force with this organization to get $1 million grant, which leads me into that next picture. And so the next picture right here is we got the $1 million grant, which as a young grant writer, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And we are standing in this picture in our new developed community center, completely renovated for the community of Oak Cliff, Texas. And it's just a blessing to see it even now grow and grow and grow, and see the work that we put in got the community the resources that it needs. And then we go down here. I was a student in college at Oklahoma State University, go Pokes, and I was the event executive director over a big charity event in our arts and performance arts sector of the university. And they sat me down again, and I was handed a negative budget. I could not believe it. I was like, this is happening again. Another no budget or another negative budget. But I can say me and these women made it happen. We fully funded the event purely off of sponsorships and donations. We made it happen. And then one of my most favorite recent pictures is this is me in Cape Town, South Africa as the marketing director over the Women's Legal Center. And this actually changed my perspective about money and how it combines with marketing. And in this situation, we had to use marketing to leverage more people into the organization, to make them find out about us, and then we could start building more capital based off of that. But in all my stories, I want you to understand that money does not control how or when I made an impact. Money does not control how or when you make an impact. It does not. So, for any nonprofit founders who are watching to this today and feel like money is an overhead issue or just a weight on your shoulder, I'm here to tell you and to provide you with the knowledge today that money does not control how or when you make an impact. So today, some topics we're going to cover. We're going to talk about social startup companies. I talked about a little bit in my intro that I run a marketing tech startup, but we're going to talk about what a social startup company is. We're also going to break down fundraisers a little bit. What exactly is a fundraiser and how do we leverage for growth and to create more cash flow? And then most importantly, we're going to talk about creating cash flow without grants. So first, what is a startup? What is a startup company? What is this mysterious word that Jasmine keeps throwing out there? Well, let me break it down for you. Let's understand startups for a minute. So a startup company is a project initiated by an entrepreneur to seek and effectively develop and validate a scalable business model. I want you to really hone in on this word, scalable business model. Also, startups are founded by one or more entrepreneurs who want to develop a product or service for which they believe there is a demand. But next, I want to talk about social impact startups, which their business model is structured around providing or supporting products or services that address social or environmental needs. Keyword needs. So, for a minute, I want you to understand what companies fall within these definitions. So, a startup company is your Zooms, your Airbnbs, your Amazons, and even recently, Blavity, a black media company that has emerged. Even though most of these are tech companies, they are still startup companies. They have a scalable business model. I always like to go back to what one of my coaches, Mandela Dixon, taught me is that the goal of a startup is to start the company, to scale it, to gain traction, meaning gaining people and or resources as quickly as possible, and then to have an exit plan. This is what all these startup companies have. But now let's look over to here. What is a social impact startup? So we go back to our definition. Let's go back for a little bit. And their business model is structured around providing or supporting products or services that address social and environmental needs. Now, when you think about it, and you think about a 501c3, doesn't a 501c3 business model is structured around providing or supporting products and or services, or in other words, programs that address social or environmental needs? Yes. And your social impact startups, Goodwill, famous 501c3, Salvation Army, another famous 501c3. The NCAA, if many of you did not know, is a 501c3 organization. And then Khan Academy, another social impact startup slash nonprofit that has a scalable business model that address social or environmental needs. And I do want to touch on a little bit going back to understanding startups. The 501c3 model is a loophole in the tax system. It is kind of one of these rare black holes that we really don't know what to do with it, but we know that for-profit business models work within it. And so if you're starting a 501c3 and you just kind of been starting, you're not really scaling, you don't really know what to do with your organization, that is okay. You know, it's okay to know that you didn't know that you needed a business model, you needed a business plan. And right now, I'm giving you these startup and social impact startup company models because this is the best way to structure it to work for you. So now let's talk about fundraising 101. And most importantly, I'm going to talk about what you need to do with your fundraisers. So, the first question we need to ask is, are my fundraisers working? Oftentimes a fundraiser doesn't work for one event and we throw it away, or it doesn't do what we thought it wanted to do and we throw it away. But the question to go back to is, are my fundraisers working? Are they working for my community? And so I want to point out that fundraisers are anything that you can come up with to raise funds. I want to defeat the stigma that Google and the internet provides, that you have to do a gala, you have to do the chocolate fundraiser, you have to go sell tickets to restaurants. No, 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 no. Just because larger nonprofits do this does not mean that works for your model in your organization. Fundraisers are anything that you can come up to raise funds to make a profit. And going into that, nonprofits can make a profit as long as the money goes back to the good of the organization. Again, there's a myth in the nonprofit industry that nonprofits cannot make a profit. We're canceling that out today. Nonprofits can make a profit as long as it goes back to the good of the organization. So I want to break down this chart a little bit. So we talked about our fundraisers, right? And then we know that every nonprofit has a program. But your nonprofit, again, the 501c3 model is a loophole, and we have to add a business model structure to all of this. But how do we do that? So you have your programs. I put 3 programs just for example, but you can have as many programs. But you always want to have a fundraiser attached to it that makes it break even. So for example, our program is $4,000 for the entire year. And these are yearly amounts, you all. $4,000 for the entire year. And then we do a fundraiser that gets us $10,000. Ooh, amazing. So now I need to break even. What most nonprofits do is we raise $10,000, so we're putting the full $10,000 towards one place, but now we can't pay bills. That is tragic. That is tragic, and we have to break even to avoid that. So what am I going to do in this situation? What is Jasmine going to do? I may be going to take $5,000 or even $4,000 and put it to my programs. But Jasmine, what do I do with the rest of the money? Well, I pay my bills off. I save maybe. I go put it towards the things. I pay salaries, employees. I put it towards the things that need to be paid off, my expenses. Then next in this situation, which is a middle ground situation. So we've broken even completely. Your program budget for the year, for example, is just $200. And then your fundraiser, you raise $200. But this is a middle ground situation because, like we said in this, we still have expenses and things that we need to pay for. In this situation, you necessarily can't do that. Your program is paid for, which is amazing. You always want to pay for your programs first, but everything else cannot be paid for out of this. And then next, you have a program that is $50,000. And then you have a fundraiser that is $30,000. Now, what is tricky about this is that you haven't funded your program, nor can you pay for anything else. And so in this situation, you always have to make sure you're never doing a fundraiser that does not fit to your audience. Again, make sure you are not doing a fundraiser that does not fit to your audience. You want to do things that I can make a definite amount of money on this and it's going to break even on my program, and I'm going to be able to put a little bit of that money aside to pay for whatever else I need to pay for. So the do's and don'ts of raising funds. Do come up with innovative ideas to raise funds. Do things that your target audience likes, not what Google tells you to do. Also, not what another nonprofit is doing. Just because it works for that nonprofit does not mean it might work for your target audience. Also, don't exceed your overhead costs. If you cannot raise funds without breaking the bank or investing your own capital, go back to the drawing board. If your fundraiser in planning the event exceeds your overhead costs, such as galas, and you feel like we can't even pay the bills because we have to pay for everything that goes into the gala, you need to go back to the drawing board. You should not exceed your overhead costs. Neither should you break the bank if you're not willing to invest your own capital into it. And then do evaluate the effectiveness of the fundraiser with your target audience. Surveys will help get their opinion about what was beneficial and what needs improvement. But also, we'll talk about a little bit later, data is the gold mine in the nonprofit industry. Data is the gold mine for anyone, investors, donors, sponsors who want to be involved. They want to see the data. Surveys get you the data by taking in their zip codes, by taking in their economic status or anything that's beneficial to your mission. Data, data, data. If you don't learn anything out of this, data, data, data. Make sure you're collecting data. So now we're going to have a little activity time, and I want you to try and learn about your organization for a little bit. I want you to write down 3 programs and fundraisers that you can do. And I'm going to set a 3-minute timer for you all to jot down these things. So ready, set, and go. Okay, okay, okay. So I hope You wrote down your 3 programs a little bit in detail, and fundraisers, brainstorm some fundraisers that you can do. And if you want me to review these, you can email me at jfnonprofitguru@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at Jasmine, Jasmine, Fain, F as in food, AIN as in Nancy, and 1_. And I would love to review some of the programs and fundraisers that you all have come up with. And even if you want to attach like a budget or some numbers, I'll be more than willing to review those for you. So next, let me pull out my notes, y'all. We are going to talk about sponsorships, donors, and investors. One of my most favorite topics to talk about. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about why donor management is pointless. And some of you all might have just heard that statement and just said, Jasmine, donor management is not pointless. Well, let me tell you this. I believe that you cannot outmanage or undermanage someone into believing in you. If they believe in you, they will give to you. If they don't believe in you, you cannot force somebody to believe in you. So that goes into my next slide. You're probably like, well, Jasmine, what can I do then? Since I just purchased this large donor management tool, what do I do? Well, let's take it back for a little bit. Sponsors, donors, and investors, for one, are there to give you an allowance because they believe in you. So if I'm constantly trying to manage them and they don't believe in me, you're not going to get that allowance. But they are there simply to give you an allowance, meaning that you should already be creating cash flow from within, and their allowance supports you. Just like a parent gave you an allowance when you were younger, it supported you to go to school and buy an extra treat or to buy lunch. But you knew if I wanted to come home and my parent wanted me to make lunch, I already had the supplies to make lunch. But they gave me allowance to go spend and do whatever I want with it. They also are there to ease up your budget. An allowance eases up your budget so that your cash flow can stretch even further into your organization. For example, when you get a sponsorship, that means potentially free resources for you. That is something I don't have to pay for within my program or my event. That eases up my budget, that eases up the responsibility for me. I can now stretch my money further to put it somewhere else, to break even and put it in another place. Also, the most important thing about sponsors, donors, and investors, they want to see a return on their investment. But Jasmine, how do they want to see a return on their investment? Well, let's go back. That is through data. If you don't have the data, you do not have a solid return on their investment. If you don't have the data, they might not stay in a long-term commitment with you. They want to see how are you pushing the needle in this community. Data and statistics come out every year talking about the communities we work within, labeling statistics on them, saying that there's these high numbers of poverty and food deserts and youth being incarcerated and different problems in our communities. But however, if you know that statistic and you can say, through our surveys, through our data, this many people have graduated from our program, this many people have been benefited, and we have impacted the community by this percentage. You are providing solid data. You are providing a return on their investment. So when they do give you money and resources, they know they're going to make it happen. They're going to move the needle. So of course, proving that the data and stats are improving because of your work in the community. So going back to donor management and my conspiracy, some people might be like, this is conspiracy theory, but conspiracy theory against it. But when I train nonprofits, I train them in the 4 stages of any relationship. And we train in relationship building because we're all humans. Whether we give money, we're out here doing the frontline work. We're all humans, and we have to build relationships with each other to be able to be committed long-term to giving to each other. So, of course, the first stage of any relationship, You find that person attractive, you are interested in them, and you found a donor, a sponsor, an investor that you're like, ooh, I really want them to be a part of my organization. I want them to know who we are. And first, you have to get them interested in you, maybe through social media, email, contacting them. They have to like what you are doing in the community. You can be in, like any dating situation, you can be interested in them, but they might not be interested in you. So you have to get them to like what you are doing. And I want to say before I go on, the key theme in all of this is marketing. Please keep that in mind. Like I said, email, social media, sending direct contacts with them, marketing. You want to be able to market towards them to maintain these relationships. Second, dating. So they like you, Now let's go on a date. They have to see and participate with you enough to decide to be a long-term giver. And I want to really emphasize participate. Dating is participating in an act with someone else. Is going out on a date. They have to see through marketing and participate through community engagement with you enough to decide to be a long-term giver. Keywords: marketing and community engagement. Community engagement, maybe you invite them to a volunteer program through your marketing. Maybe you sent them a newsletter saying we're having a volunteer program. They come out, they participate with you. You direct message them talking about a program that you want them to be a speaker in. They participate with you. They have to see and participate with you enough to decide to be a long-term giver. Third, you have a relationship with them. So they saw you, they came out, participated with you, you talked with them face to face, or maybe now virtually a little bit, and they have established a relationship with you. We are so close to getting that long-term commitment. You all have established a connection to know when to give to each other and when it's needed. But lastly, you have built a relationship with them, but that is not the last step. A long-term commitment / marriage is the last step. Now, this person gives without looking to all that you do. They unconditionally want to support you in every aspect. So when you send a newsletter, they're asking, how much do you need and more? When you say you need volunteers, they're bringing themselves and even more people. They give to you unconditionally. And that is why a donor management software cannot build this. Only human connection, community engagement, and marketing can build that long-term commitment with your donors, your investors, and your sponsors. So now I want to talk a little bit about different types of cash flow. And so we have this pyramid right here. And you see this at the top, that grants are the top, the smallest one, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But these are your different types of cash flow for social startup companies, for 501c3s. First, your main source of cash flow should come from fundraisers and for-profit models. And with for-profit models, many of you might have heard of social enterprise companies, going back to nonprofits creating thrift stores, creating different for-profit business models, separate LLCs that fund money back into the 501c3 or the nonprofit organization. Also, fundraisers. Remember, fundraisers are anything that can raise money, anything that create a profit. If you want to start a clothing line to create that profit, boom, you created a profit. That's what your target audience like, you can do that. If you want to do the chocolate and your target audience love chocolate or candles or beauty products, fundraise the way your target audience likes. Next, we have investors. So investors, again, going back, you have to build that relationship with them. Next, we have sponsorships. That's corporate sponsorships, companies giving out free products to you. Maybe they give out money, opportunities. It doesn't always have to be monetary. Anything that scales. Remember, going back to a social impact startup. anything that scales your business quickly, that gains you traction. And then we have donations. And donations is the second to last thing, because donations often come from our community, or even they will come from our investors. But investors are more of a long-term relationship, and they give a more high ticket number value donation. But when we talk about donation, we're talking about, this family that gives $100 every year because that's all they can do, but they really support you because of the way you've supported them. We're talking about the college student who maybe gives $25 every month because they really want to volunteer with you and really support your mission. Those are the donations we're talking about. They're not high ticket value like the investor donations, and how the investor has provided equity for your organization, but it's something. It's still just as valuable. But lastly, we have grants as the least thing you should worry about in cash flow. And let me tell you why. Because in reality, grants are a crush for your organization. They make you rely on someone else to make your dreams possible. Let me just say that again. Grants in reality are a crutch for your organization. They make you rely on someone else to make your dreams possible. But also, like I said, as a professional grant writer, grants are only supposed to be 2% over your overall annual budget. This is 2% of your overall annual budget. Also, I would like to point out, grants can also be very political, and they have a long follow-up requirements in order to keep and maintain a good reputation. And with grants, I also want to talk a little bit about the mind of a grantor. Yeah, let me talk about that before I move on to sustainability, y'all, to sustainability. So now in grant applications, they ask, what additional income resources do you have? But what does that mean? So I want to bring you into the mind of a grant foundation or someone who's looking at your application. So I want everybody to close their eyes and to just think of like a text bubble in your head. And so think of yourself, put yourself in the shoes of a person reviewing maybe 1,000 applications for one grant. And they're reading the application, you're reading the application. And in your mind, you're thinking, I want to help them grow, but I can't support their entire budget. How are they managing their money? So you're thinking about that. You're reading the application. Next, you look and see this application and it says donation-based nonprofit. And you think, donation-based, that probably will mean they will spend the money faster. This grant was only supposed to be a one-time give. And now you're going through more applications and you're reviewing. You're trying to decide who to give more money to and who to give this amount and everything. And next, you look at an application and you say, I like their one program. They want $10,000, but $2,000 will cover the program for the year that I like. Now open your eyes. Now that you've tapped into the mind of a grant foundation, now you can kind of empathize with the way that they're giving out money. Saying that we shouldn't rely on grants and that they are 2% of your overall annual budget doesn't demean or make grant foundations evil. It puts you in their shoes. Grant foundations are nonprofits also. The problems that you face in the world, they face the same problems. The cash flow that you have to create, they have to create the same cash flow. But this is the way they think. And going into sustainability, to sustain your nonprofit, you need more than one income source. You need cash flow to be produced from all these other sources and from within your organization through fundraisers and for-profit models, through investors, sponsorships, donations, without any outside help of grants. And even though donations are outside help, sponsorships are outside help, investors are outside helps, they are scaling your organization up like this pyramid. But fundraisers and for-profit models are the main thing that create sustainable income from within. These scale, these sustain from within. So now let's talk about sustainability for a little bit. So, like we said, grants should only be 2% of your overall annual budget. Shocked face, yes. But most importantly, grants are capital. And Jasmine, what is capital? So capital includes the cash and other financial assets held by an individual or business and is the total of all financial resources used to leverage growth and build financial stability. Grants are used as capital because keyword, they leverage your growth. They build financial stability. Let me go back, y'all. And so, Jasmine, how do I use grants to leverage growth, to build capital? Well, let's think of this example for a minute. So going back to our chart that we talked about, you have your program and you have your fundraiser, we've breaking even. And so we're doing good. Programs are fully funded. Money is getting placed and expenses are being paid for. We are using the CHAB method that Jasmine Fain taught me. Now I want to apply for a grant only because we are expanding and I want a little bit more money. So now I'm going to go to a grant foundation. I'm going to fill out my application. I'm going to say we have this source of income. We produce it from here, here, here. We just need $1,000 for you to maybe pay for some extra students. And guess what? You get the grant. Amazing. You have an extra $1,000. But say the grant foundation, we thought about the mind of a grant foundation. Say they're like, I think they maybe are doing well enough. We can't support them at this time to give them this money. That is okay because through the ECHAB method, like Jasmine Fain taught you, remember, like I taught you, you've broken even. Your expenses are paid for. Everything is paid for. You are not worried about where you're going to get the money to pay for the organization because everything is already paid for by creating cash flow from within. You are using grants as capital now. Capital. Remember, capital includes the cash and other financial assets held by an individual or business and is the total of all financial resources used to leverage growth and build financial stability. They are used to, if everybody could say this with me, even though I can't really hear you, to leverage growth, and build financial stability, Write that down. So now I want you to, and let's see if it loads. If it doesn't, just give it a minute, y'all. We're having technical difficulties a little bit. Give me, if this does not work, y'all, we're going to pull it up from my desktop, okay? Let's see all the stuff that I have. Okay, there we go. See all my files and stuff. Okay, there we go, guys. So now we're going to talk about having an exit plan. That is okay. We have technical difficulties sometimes, but we still move it. Just like any nonprofit organization, sometimes you might have uphill battles, but you still move. Now we're going to talk about why you should have an exit plan. So listen to this short video that I made called Couch Conversations on my Instagram, and I talked about why you should have an exit plan. Hey everyone, it's Jasmine back with another couch conversation, and today we are talking about exit plans. So as you know, I train nonprofits to become social startup companies, and with any startup company, you need an exit plan. But what does that look like for a nonprofit? Well, first, your board of directors needs an exit plan. That simply means holding them accountable. That's putting a standard or a rule or a plan in place to say if you decide to leave, there needs to be someone already in line to take your place or a backup in place. That way there isn't a missing spot anytime in the organization. Second, you as the founder and CEO need an exit plan. I'm sorry to tell you, but you cannot do this work forever. 10 to 20 years in the game, you're going to be worn out. This is a company or a game of selling other people's stories to other people, and you're going to invest your whole heart into other people, and that can be tiring. So have an exit plan for yourself. That means maybe saying, oh, I want my children to have it and become the next president and CEO when I decide to leave, if they're old enough. Or I want to hire out a CEO or a president or somebody else to take my place. Just have an exit plan and know what you want to do. And that's just to keep you mentally, physically, and all around stable, to always keep the passion for the organization but not wear yourself down. But that's how to have an exit plan. If you have any more questions for me, you can visit livingwithj.com, or you can just DM me on Instagram and ask me all the plethora of questions that you have. But that's how to have an exit plan. See you next time on To the Couch Conversation. And I just wanted to point out that those are old links now. It is now www.jasminefain.com. And of course, my Instagram is JasmineFain1_. But that is to have an exit plan. And like I explained in the video, you cannot do this work forever. But also, like we explained earlier, startup companies, like my mentor Mandela said, are to start, to scale and gain traction, and to exit. You know, most startup companies have an exit of an IPO, going public, or they remain private, liquefying their shares. But as a nonprofit, you need to have an exit plan also as the founder and CEO. You need to have this as a sustainability plan to make sure your business has a goal to scale to. But most importantly, as the founder and CEO, you cannot do this work forever. You need to have an exit plan of who will take over your position in maybe 5 to 10 years, and to see when is it time for me to step away from this work. And so that is the end of my session. I have had so much fun talking with you all about this. This is my life's work. This is my purpose work. Everything in my life, Yahuwah, or is common name God, and Yahshua HaMashiach, in common name Jesus Christ, has led me into this work and has blessed me completely. I don't do anything without them. But most importantly, if you enjoyed this session and you're like, Jasmine, I want to learn more, you can apply for my Cashflow Without Grants program. It is open and registration ends August 17th. And Jasmine, what are you going to teach me in this program? Well, first, I got to ask you, are you tired of always being denied for a grant to gain money for your community? Are you tired of applying for grants? I give you the resources to get your programs fully funded by the end of the year. Everything that I talked about in the video plus more. And the program includes weekly group coaching sessions, business plan templates, investor email templates, and cash flow building PDFs. Also, you get a training from nonprofit marketers and pitch competition judges and attorneys and accountants, access to an exclusive cash flow building Facebook group with nonprofits all around in different communities. So if you want to join, here's the link right now. I'm going to give you a minute to settle down and write down the link, and you can definitely go register for my program and come join me in creating cash flow without grants. Let's get more people into the social startup model, the social impact model, and let's create cash flow without grants. But again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who have joined me. You can find me on social media at Twitter, Jasmine Fain, LinkedIn, Jasmine Fain, and Instagram, Jasmine Fain underscore. And also for Facebook, it is the same handles as Twitter and LinkedIn. I just thank you all for joining me. Thank you for joining me in this purpose work that I am doing. And I am so excited to see the nonprofits that you are building and to see a lot of you all in my program to create cash flow without grants. Thank you.